Tulsi Gabbard, she's considered to be essentially a Russian asset and would be the most dangerous.
Is that how you consider her? Is that what you consider her?
Oh, yes. There's no question. I consider her someone who is likely a Russian asset.
That was from Debbie Was-A-Man Schnitz, who is a communist mole for the Chinese Communist Party, and she has North Korean ties, too. I have no reason to believe any of what I just said is true, but that's obviously not the standard that's being applied here by these criminals like Debbie Was-A-Man Schnitz. They're going after Matt Gaetz. They set the Justice Department loose on him, and they investigated him for how long, Michael? About 2 years. Matt Gaetz was investigated by the Justice Department, and finally they said, well, we had 2 people that we were calling witnesses, but it turns out they're so unreliable that no one would bring them into court to be witnesses. So they discontinued the investigation because they had nothing, and they had all the federal government resources available to them, and they had nothing. So they dropped the investigation altogether after a while. And what was that? That was allegedly involving what do we have? We had one of the Democrats yesterday called him a convicted drug abuser and underage sex. They call him all kinds of things that aren't true, but that doesn't matter. And Pete Hegseth, now, who served in the Army, served in Iraq, served in Afghanistan, served at Guantanamo Bay, U.S. Army officer, infantryman, awarded 2 Bronze Star medals in combat zones, and hey, let's make you the Secretary of Defense. And they say, oh, no. And then it may be the crooked FBI office that's doing the background checks on Gaetz and then handing what they find over to the New York Times. Hard to say right now, but they're looking to sabotage, to torpedo, to sink the nominations of Congressman Matt Gaetz. Now, former Congressman Matt Gaetz grew up in a political family. His father, an elected official in the state of Florida for a long, long time. Pete Hegseth, now they say, a woman years ago accused Pete Hegseth of sexual inappropriateness at a convention of some kind in California. And it's kind of a weird story, I've got to say. And the woman says that she had sex with Pete Hegseth, but that later on, apparently, it was not voluntary. But her husband and 2 kids were staying in the same hotel at the same time. And it's all very peculiar. The whole thing is quite sketchy. And Tulsi Gabbard, also a U.S. Army officer, a lieutenant colonel, and she served in Iraq as well, and a decorated Army officer as well. And now you've got the likes of Debbie Was-A-Man Schnitz accusing her of being a Russian spy. And what they're accusing her of is treason. They're literally, and there's not a journalist in this country that is worth their weight in manure. I'm trying to keep it clean. But you would ask the question, wait a minute, you're saying she's a Russian asset? And Hillary Clinton, of course, said that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset as well. Now, that would mean that you're a traitor. That would mean that you were committing treason.
I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary. She's a favorite of the Russians. Yeah, she's a Russian asset. I mean, totally.
Totally. She's talking about a U.S. Army officer and Democrat member of the House of Representatives, Tulsi Gabbard. Isn't that amazing? Our government here. These are not quality people. These are not good people. These are despicable people. They are, what are they? What did Eric say yesterday? Filth. They are filth. That's the thing about them. And they say these truly outrageous things. And in the meantime, we learned, and let's go back to number 8, soundbite number 8, as the head of FEMA testifies on Capitol Hill today, and a whistleblower has come forward to blow the whistle. Marnie Washington has blown the whistle, saying, oh, yeah, we're all told to, if you're a Trump supporter, we skip your house. Your neighborhood is all Trump. We don't even go there. We're with FEMA. And this is classic abuse of government offices, of government power. And Congressman Jim Jordan, also asked about this yesterday, and I think that he's in on the hearing today. I hope that he's in on the hearing today. Jim Jordan.
This is a textbook example of government being weaponized for political reasons. I mean, skip the Trump houses, go to, I mean, you can't get a more blatant example of the weaponization of government, of politics involved in government agencies. We're going to dig into this and find out if it was an isolated incident or if, in fact, it was commonplace and widespread.
Well, according to Marnie Washington, it's commonplace and widespread, and she has been working there for years. There is a Democrat, a radical extremist, anti-American, probably a fascist. His name is Glenn Ivey. You think he's a fascist? Might say, no, could be. Could be a fascist. Might be like he could dress up in his Waffen-SS uniform at home, just like so many Democrats do with their little riding crops and their thing hanging from the ceiling, But here's a Democrat, left-wing, radical extremist, racist, Glenn Ivey from Maryland, and he thinks, based on everything he's heard from the whistleblower at FEMA and stuff, oh, this is good. We should do more of this.
I think we're going to have to figure out ways to improve what FEMA's been doing. I think there's been a lot of misinformation and, frankly, false information put out that's attacking them. But there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, there's always room for there's a lot of misinformation and false information, which is not the same as misinformation. Two separate categories: misinformation, and then false information. They use the words, but they don't know what they mean. Aren't they amazing? That's your Democrat Party. Yeah, they're probably, and what he's doing is defending FEMA. Oh, people are saying it's coming from inside FEMA. You understand, don't you, Glenn Ivey? Just amazing stuff. Also, did you see the G20, the group of 20, the 20 governments, the leading economies of the world, the G20 meeting in Latin America and in South America, where Joe Biden, you see him, it was very funny on our Newsmax show last night. We were talking about Joe Biden with his Ray-Ban aviator sunglasses down there, wearing like a moo-moo, and then he wandered off into the jungle, and nobody could find him, and making the comparison to Jim Jones of the People's Temple and Jonestown with the mass suicide in Guyana. The anniversary was yesterday, 46 years ago yesterday. Jim Jones and the People's Temple with the mass suicide, more than 900 suicides. Some of them may be murders. But Joe Biden, here's that line from USA Today. Where is Joe Biden? ? U.S. President misses G20 summit photo. They always have these photos, and you wear a shirt that's kind of like local garb wherever the summit is held that year. And here's Joe Biden with his Jim Jones Ray-Ban aviator sunglasses on in the jungle. Then he wandered off into the jungle, and nobody knew where he was. And USA Today reporting that it's the end of the summit. They always have all the world leaders, presumably 20 of them, get together for the class photo. That's what they call it, the class photo. And there were 19 world leaders in the class photo because Joe Biden had wandered off somewhere. Biden and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arrived at the waterside location just as their fellow world leaders were dispersing. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, she's the one that went and got Joe Biden. Remember when he wandered off at the Italian summit last year? And she went and took him by the elbow and brought him back like he's a doddering fool, because he is. Amazing stuff. But Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni also missed the photo shoot in which Chinese President Xi Jinping stood front and center. This is the U.S. government passing the torch to the communists who enslave 1 billion people, and they've murdered between 50 million and 75 million of their own people. And they're now the new leaders of the world because Joe Biden has abdicated. But at least there is, a photo showing that Joe Biden wasn't there and the Chinese are now in charge. Amazing stuff. Your Democrat Party. Now there was a news media moment. Where is Joe Biden? Where did the President of the United States go? Nobody can find him at the G20 meeting where we're supposed to be the number one sled dog.
Biden, your friend. Where was he? wait for Biden, guys.
Nope. White House staffers.
Oh, my God.
They're telling you to wait for Biden because Biden's nowhere to be found.
Do you see him, Joe? Far left. Left to the left of the palm tree. Oh, my God.
Look at him. He's to the left of the palm tree. He's off in the jungle. That is classic. The end of Joe Biden's career as a politician. He wandered off into the jungle. He hasn't been found. We think he might have contracted monkeypox, but he was nowhere. And they're yelling, wait, they want you to wait for Joe Biden because he's off by the palm tree. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Where is he? He's lost. They lost the president of the United States. Isn't that wacky? Yes, sir. Joe Biden. He's not up to the task. He never was. I've been telling you about it here for 5 years. And the news media, as they call themselves, they've been lying to us all for about 5 years because they're Democrats, and all Democrats lie about everything all the time. Isn't that amazing? Now, again, I was mentioning that they're going after Matt Gaetz. They're going after Pete Hegseth. They're going after Tulsi Gabbard. They're saying she's a Russian asset because they can't accuse her, I guess, of having some kind of a sexual thing, which is what they always do. It's what they did with Brett Kavanaugh. It's what they did with Clarence Thomas. It's what they're doing with Matt Gaetz. It's what they're doing with Pete Hegseth, trying to gin up a sex scandal, because that's Democrat Party politics for you, right? Now let's go to number 11 on MSDNC, DNC TV. They have a Democrat they pay there to be a Democrat. Her name is Chris Jansing. That's a woman, right? Because we don't know. You know, the Democrats, they elected a transgender to the House of Representatives, and now they want the dude look like a lady, to be showering with the women members of Congress and stuff. And I'll try to get to that too. But Chris Jansing, they're going after the Matt Gaetz, until moments ago, a Republican member of the House of Representatives. And the Justice Department targeted him because Democrats, and they investigated him for like 2 years and never turned up anything and dropped the investigation. But they don't care. Here comes MSDNC and Chris Jansen.
A sense of alarm is building among officials at the Justice Department and the FBI, who are bracing for possible revenge prosecutions from the incoming Trump administration.
Bracing.
NBC News reports that some civil servants who work on a government salary have proactively reached out to lawyers. That's according to 3 people with knowledge of their deliberations.
3 have knowledge.
They're worried about the effect of long and costly legal battles.
Really, like the ones that you've been putting President Trump through in New York and in Georgia and in Washington, D.C., or like the one that you've been putting Rudy Giuliani through because he raised questions about the Georgia election, and now he's had to turn over his grandfather's watch to 2 women that live in Georgia, and had to turn over the vintage antique Mercedes-Benz convertible that used to belong to a giant movie star, Lauren Bacall. And he had to turn over his apartment in New York in a co-op. The ownership documents, because you own shares in a co-op, had to turn over his shares to these 2 women because he was fined, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers, $148 million. Are those the kinds of things that you're talking about? And Matt Gaetz was targeted and accused of interstate something or other with an underage female, and then you dropped the whole thing after you bankrupted him 2 years into the legal bills. Chris Jansing on CNN.
A lot of DOJ staffers we had been hearing and you had been reporting were saying there was some nervousness about what might happen, about, frankly, what has been said about the plans for going after people who they felt unfairly went after them.
Who they felt unfairly went after them. Well, you mean what goes around comes around? And it's MSDNC, of course, not CNN. I apologize. And, yeah, now they're afraid that they might get their comeuppance since they've been abusing their power at the Justice Department and the FBI for years to target the political enemies of the Democrat Party. And at FEMA, they've been targeting the political enemies of the Democrat Party. And they're terrified. They're lawyering up. And Chris Jansing very compassionately, on a government salary, they're lawyering up. Well, what do you think these other people are living off of when you've targeted them over the last several years? And the news media applauded you gang of criminals, you frauds, you fascist, communist Hitlers. They're all Hitler. Okay, they're not really all Hitler. Could the fate of America's children be tied to the fate of our nation? Most definitely. You know, like the Democrat abortionists and the lives of the unborn, more than 1 million last year, the left, they seem determined to snuff out everything else. But Preborn, a great organization, Preborn, stands as a beacon of light and hope for the most defenseless among us. Preborn babies, the unborn. Every day, Preborn's network of clinics helps to rescue, on average, more than 200 unborn babies, while surrounding the expectant mothers with love and with God, and offering a free ultrasound. And that's where we come in. Witnessing the miracle of life has never been more crucial as we navigate through this time of moral decay and decline. Will you please join Preborn in helping to protect the least among us, the most helpless? For just $28, you can sponsor an ultrasound. Give a mother a chance to see the life growing inside of her and choose life for herself and for her baby. An ultrasound can double the chance of a baby living a long, happy, and prosperous life here in America. To donate securely, all you have to do is dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, and the keyword is baby. Or you can go online to preborn.com/plant. That's preborn.com/PLANTE. Ain't it grand? So we got that. And, oh no, the news media is very upset that the Democrats might be subjected to the things that they subject other people to. But this time around, it might be legitimate. The Democrats now have a transgender member of the House of Representatives, too, and they're going to go to war over him using the ladies' shower room and stuff because they're all mentally ill. Let's grab a quick call. Let's go to Rob, calling from beautiful Michigan. Roberto, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. Great show. I'm glad I found you.
Thank you.
I wanted to just, throw out an idea to your listeners that I've been doing and participating for the last 6-7 years. Mm-hmm. Ever since the city of Ann Arbor declared themselves a sanctuary city, I decided, you know what, I disagree with this, and if they're not going to help law enforcement in any way round these people up, I decided I only live 2 miles outside the city limits. And I do not patronize, and I have not patronized any businesses within the city limits of a sanctuary city.
Wow.
Whether it be Ann Arbor, Chicago, whomever.
Wow.
I happily drive 9 or 10 or 12 miles to a different community, but I won't order pizza, won't go to a hardware store, won't go to a restaurant.
Wow. You're boycotting cities because they're sanctuary cities. Genius. Ah, yes. Now, the Democrats, they went out and they found a transgender guy who dresses like a woman and says he's a woman. And they said, let's run this guy for the House of Representatives, for the Congress, and then we'll pick a fight with everybody over whether this guy is a woman or not. And we'll say that he is. And then we'll call everybody names because they're normal and we're not. See, that's what the Democrats, just one of the many things they like to do when they're picking fights with everybody in their family, their next-door neighbors, their coworkers, the courts, the government, everywhere you go. Now, here's the thing. This person, who I'm sure is a very nice person, man presenting as a woman, now elected to the Congress, the House of Representatives, the United States of America, right? And this has led to no end of entertainment and hijinks. The New York Post has a story today. Representative Nancy Mace, a wonderful Republican from South Carolina, introduces Capitol bathroom bill. Incoming transgender Paul, Sarah McBride, responds. Now, Sarah would be a woman's name. And Sarah, is a man who says, I'm a woman now, but I, as a scientist, I am a biologist, unlike a certain member of the Supreme Court of the United States. And I know the difference between a man and a woman. I've checked. See, Nancy Mace, our South Carolina, unveiled a resolution on Monday that would ban transgender women, meaning men, from using female bathrooms inside the Capitol, drawing immediate criticism from Democratic Representative-elect Sarah McBride, who will be the first openly transgender member of Congress, as though there have been other transgender members of Congress who were not openly transgender, but secretly transgender. That's the implication when you use the word openly there. Now let's go to Nancy Mace, because we have two Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace was asked about this because she introduced the legislation because dude looked like a lady won election, and the Democrats, they love gender dysphoria and they love conflict. Now, the people at CNN, they type Republican. That's a dirty word at CNN in the headline. Republican introduces anti-transgender bathroom resolution at Capitol. It's not anti-transgender. They just don't want, men with penises flapping around in the ladies' locker room and shower room. They got a gym at the Capitol for members of Congress, and, there can be kind of normal moments from time to time. Republican introduces anti-transgender bathroom resolution at Capitol after first transgender woman erected to Congress. I'm sorry, it's elected to Congress. That's somewhat different, isn't it? Yes, it is. Mace defends attempt to ban transgender lawmaker from using women's restrooms and again, locker rooms and shower rooms. And the Democrats always say it's just about bathrooms, and they're always lying because it's about a lot more than that. So here's Nancy Mace. She was stopped while walking on Capitol Hill. Said, hey, what about you're so mean, an anti-transgender bill? Don't you want a woman with a penis and testicles in the locker room with you, flapping around and saying, hey, Nancy, I'm your colleague now from Mersey Dotes and Dozy Dotes and Little Lambs Eat Ivy.
Should not be in the locker room, should not be in changing rooms, should not be in our restrooms either. And I'm going to be standing in the brink, standing in his or her way, putting a stop to this insanity and this nonsense. She doesn't get a say. This is about real women and women's rights. And the far left, radical left, they want to erase women and women's rights, and I'm not going to let them.
Erase women's rights, and I'm not going to let them. And I got to tell you what, you must take a stand here. There is no choice but to take a stand. This is the Congress of the United States, and if you're not going to take a stand here, you're never going to take a stand. And then we're just going to pretend forever and ever that women can be men and men can be women. No, I don't care. You want to dress up and do whatever you want. That's fine. And this person elected from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden's state, right? Sarah McBride. What was Sarah McBride's? What is Sarah McBride's real name? Because Sarah McBride is a dude, and you look at dude and you're like, oh, that's a dude with long hair. No big deal. So Sarah McBride will win open Delaware seat, becoming first transgender person in Congress. CNN projects. They were able to project that back on November 5th of 2024. And Sarah McBride, so-called, was a member, apparently a Democrat member of the state Senate in Delaware, who ran for the House of Representatives. Tim, is that a real name? Tim McBride. It's like Monty Python. His name is Tim, but they call him Tim. That's Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Is that Holy Grail or Life of Brian? I think it's Holy Grail. Yeah, Holy Grail. So Sarah McBride, a Tim McBride, a Delaware state senator, will win her, meaning his, state's at-large U.S. House seat, making her, meaning him, the first out transgender person to serve in Congress. At CNN, they're all pretending that there have been other transgender members of Congress, and we just didn't know it. This is what they're, going on all the time. We just didn't know. Pretty amazing stuff. And once Tim McBride became the Democrat nominee for their one seat in the House of Representatives, the at-large seat, then that was pretty much it because it's Joe Biden's seat, and the Democrats are very proud. Now, Nancy Mace, again, asked about it. Listen, women's locker room, women's lockers, women's showers, not for people with penises and breasts who had the breasts installed, but Dog is their co-pilot, so Dog gave him the penis and testicles. But this is a biological man. And you know what a biological man is, Michael? A man, that's right. That's, the word biological is superfluous and unnecessary because you're either a man or you're not. And every cell, because of the patriarchy, we know about these things. We know about cellular biology, and we know about all kinds of things. We can, take a scraping of skin from your body anywhere in your body and determine that you're a man or a woman. The burned up remains, like from Jonestown. I know they weren't really burned up. You can tell after the fact. But Nancy Mace wasn't done yet because she's being doorstepped at the Capitol. But that's a transgender, the first, and a Democrat in Delaware in the shower with you with the genitalia.
Here's the deal. Biological men shouldn't be in women's private spaces, period. End of story.
So this is specifically because Sarah McBride is coming in Congress?
That and more. So, if we can't do it here, we can't do it anywhere. I've been strong on women's rights for several years now, and it's time to make sure that we protect women and girls everywhere.
That is outrageous. How dare you protect women and girls? The Democrats want to erase is a pretty good term. They want to devalue women and womanhood and gender itself and science and biology, which the Democrat Party has rejected like medievalists from the Dark Ages. Honestly, Marjorie Taylor Greene was asked about this man coming into the House of Representatives pretending to be a woman, and the question of the legislation now being proposed by Nancy Mace that would restrict the movements of this man when it comes to women's spaces. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I support a resolution that keeps all biological men out of women's bathrooms, locker rooms, and private places, not only here in the Capitol complex, our office buildings, but all taxpayer-funded facilities.
It's great that the law is being proposed and that Democrats will have to vote on it. And honestly, the Republicans in control of the House of Representatives shortly, and the Republicans in control of the Senate shortly, even though the Democrats are trying to steal a Senate seat in Pennsylvania where they want to steal it. And by counting votes that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has already deemed are not eligible votes, unsigned. Hey, whose vote is this? We'll never know. Oh, look, they voted for Kamala. Isn't that amazing? What a coincidence. So Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then the Speaker of the entire House of Representatives was asked about it, too, and he gave a kind of a diplomatic answer. He decided this was not the moment to have this fight. We'll have the fight later. But the Speaker of the entire House of Representatives, I just call him Mike.
Is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms, who
even Democrats,
duly elected representatives of the people.
They're all trannies.
I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect, and we will. And I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this. There's a concern about the uses of restroom facilities and locker rooms and all that. This is an issue that Congress has never had to address before, and we're going to do that in deliberate fashion with member consensus on it, and we will accommodate the needs of every single person. That's all I'm going to say about that.
And I got to say, for Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, that's a pretty good answer. It's the stiff arm, delay it. We'll get to this when we have control of the House. I'm not going to. It's going to become the headline in every newspaper and every stupid, corrupt TV news show if he says the wrong thing, and it's not the wrong thing. But that was a perfect good answer. We're going to sort this out in due time. And we'll have a measured approach, and we respect every idiot, Democrat, racist, anti-Semite, cross-dressing mental case that the Democrats send to the House of Representatives. We respect them equally. I would say I'd make it funny by saying we respect them equally. But, you know, I'm craftier with words than most than most members of Congress are. Isn't that amazing? So the Democrats have sent Dude Look Like a Lady to the House of Representatives, and the Democrats want to fight. They're going to pick a fight. They'll probably burn stuff down. They might shoot Ashley Babbitt all over again just because, you know how they love shooting and killing people, these people. Man, oh, Manischewitz, I am telling you. Also, we haven't even gotten to, oops, I was going to start talking again. We haven't even gotten to Sean Duffy. Sean Duffy, who is a now former member of the House of Representatives. President Trump is picking him to become the Transportation Secretary, Secretary of the Department of Transportation, replacing Pete Buttigieg, who had no qualifications to serve in the cabinet of any administration in any capacity, but he's gay. So, and is, you know, got pictures of him breastfeeding and stuff like that. Excuse me, chest feeding. It was chest feeding. And he'll be going by the wayside now, Pete Buttigieg. And the incoming Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, who is, again, a former House member from Wisconsin. That's the middle of America, and they haven't completely lost their minds yet. They send Senator Ron Johnson and stuff. But he's also married to Rachel Campos Duffy, who is an anchor woman on weekends on the Fox News Channel. And she's a lovely and charming and pleasant person, very nice person. And he's a very pleasant person, too. They're a lovely couple, and they have 9 kids. 9 kids. They like procreating, and they're good at it. Do they have one adopted kid? I'm not 100% sure, but they've got 9 kids. They're raising 9 kids, and at least 8 of them are theirs. I think that I don't know why I think they might have one adopted kid, but it's possible. Remarkable stuff. They're good. They're good. They're very nice, and he now being selected to be the Secretary of the Department of Transportation. And he'll be attacked, of course, because the psychopaths they just attacked, that would be every Democrat. No, all 9 kids are theirs? All right, my apologies. They're very prolific. Oh, is that right? Contrary to speculation? There's been a rumor about 1 kid being adopted. Okay. Well, I guess I heard the rumor. You gotta double-check everything, don't you? Speaking of which, the great Molly Hemingway, the wonderful journalist, a real journalist, Molly Hemingway, Washington, D.C., with the Federalist. And she really is one of my favorite news reporters. No kidding. She's great. And she's got a great piece in the Federalist today. House probe, the House of Representative Democrats with the transgender cross-dressing want to come into the shower room with you person. House probe into Matt Gaetz relies on witnesses DOJ found lacked credibility, by Molly Hemingway at the Federalist. And she's a great journalist and investigative journalist and a smart woman, and she's wonderful. She tells the truth with a smile, and it's very nice. The subheadline, a convicted felon said he was paying the legal fees of Matt Gaetz's accuser and controlling her. And I told you last week, I mentioned yesterday, and I mentioned again today, that the Department of Justice investigated Matt Gaetz. Then they announced, we had 2 witnesses that we've discovered are completely unreliable, and nobody in their right mind would go into court with these 2 phony sham witnesses. And they dropped the case against Matt Gaetz because there was nothing there. And it was another lynch mob by the Democrat Party on horseback with a rope and torches that they're so fond of. So the last 8 years at the Department of Justice have been a disaster for the rule of law, Molly Hemingway writes. The sprawling intelligence and law enforcement agency ran the Russia collusion hoax, hamstringing President Donald Trump during his entire first term in office. It interfered in the 2020 election by falsely telling social media companies that laptop with incriminating information about the Biden family's business was Russian disinformation, and telling them to censor speech and debate about the topic. And then, of course, the intelligence community, the 51 signed on to that, tampering in our presidential election. They should literally be in handcuffs. And then, of course, the investigation into Matt Gaetz, which was a sham, a fraud, a political hatchet job. and they had two witnesses, one of them an ex-con, a felon, a convicted felon who was paying the legal fees of the accuser that the Justice Department found to be completely unreliable. And now the Democrats are pretending there's a separate investigation in the House, which there is, that would turn up something different, which it wouldn't. Amazing stuff, and Molly Hemingway lays it out here. Great stuff. And the Democrats, of course, have a long history of false sex smears. Molly Hemingway gets into that. And too ridiculous, even for the DOJ, which dropped the investigation when they found there was nothing there to pursue, and it was going nowhere. But never mind that. The accusers were shown up later on. But the Democrats are going to keep using it because they're a gang of miscreants, aren't they? The New York Times reporting today that the Associated Press will be cutting staff by 8%, nearly 10%. Isn't that amazing? Transgender this, transgender that. There's also a story, 17 arrested during men's pro-life march, including the transgender daughter of Democrat Congresswoman Catherine Clark, who is famous for assaulting police and transgender. When you say transgender daughter, is that her son? Because I'm not sure. All right, let's. We don't have a lot of time, but let's go to Doug calling from Clifton, Virginia. Douglas, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Well, thanks for squeezing me in. You said earlier in the program about how Biden is really destabilizing the world and getting us close to World War III. Well, just in the news was this. Biden is still illegally giving money to the Palestinians against the advice of the United States. Turkey is now hosting Hamas in their country, and this is a NATO country. What happens if they start supporting a terrorist attack from Turkey towards Israel?
Yeah, Turkey has always been a tricky NATO ally. And Joe Biden is, you're right, is he sabotaging Trump on his way out the door?